Chapter 138, The Battle in the Heaven Realm. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. The Defender Array had been activated. It was comprised of several bright rays that were embedded in the ground. Each ray had caused a huge crater with a diameter of more than 32 feet around. The area surrounding the craters had been torn apart, forming large messy cracks. Anyone that had been hit by a descending ray had died instantly, becoming a blood fog, including the warriors in the completion of the Earth Realm. Inside the Tanyagwan Pass, countless evil masters were killed by the array in just 15 minutes. Their screams rose one after another. Boom! The legend of martial arts of the Heaven Realm, from the black market, rushed out of a courtyard. He flew to the gate of the Tanyua Gate like a black streak of light. The legend was incredibly fast. Friction from speeding through the air caused flames to appear on his body, making the wind whistle. Still trying to escape? Chen Yukon stood in the center of the Defender Array and manipulated its power with just a flick of his wrist. With that small motion, he transferred the power of the array to attack the myth of martial arts. A giant lightning ball, with a diameter of 3 feet, fell from the Defender Array and attacked the man at high speed. Howl. The myth of martial arts let out a howl and it spread across the whole Tanyua Gate. Nearly 1,000 defenders were knocked over by his sound wave and they passed out with their ears bleeding. This was followed by another cacophonous sound. The lightning ball fell from the sky, smashing into thousands of tiny streams at his feet. The ground was now covered with a white lightning and it looked as if thousands of white snakes were writhing around in a 165-foot radius. Snap! A huge tree became charred and burned black in less than a minute. It fell to the ground and disintegrated into a pile of black ashes. When he rushed to the gate, the martial arts legend found that Wan Cheng Chong had waited there with his battle axe in his hand. Wan Cheng Chong, how dare you be the enemy of the black market? The myth of the black market challenged. He was tall and thin and his arms and legs were slender, like 4 bamboo sticks. The myth was pissed. He didn't think that Wan Cheng Chong would have had the nerve to activate the Defender Array and fight against the masters from the black market. Boom! Wan Cheng Chong laid down his heavy battle axe and held it haft in one hand. Mohan, I don't care what you normally do. That is the only reason you were able to live to this day. However, now that Yunwu Commandery is at stake, you're choosing to cause trouble and disturb the order of Yunwu City. I can't spare your life any longer. Tough talk. Dare you say those without the force of the Defender Array? The myth of the black market said coldly. Wan Cheng Chong said with a deep voice, I can kill you without the aid of the Defender Array. Mohan's eyes darkened. He took out a black sword, a 7th level genuine martial arm, and wielded it in his hand. The black sword was 2 meters long. Its surface was covered with sprays of red blood. There were 48 inscriptions inside the sword and all of them were inscriptions of the Dark series. Boom! Mohan thrust the sword into the ground and roared, complete darkness. A cold dark power emitted from the sword, spreading in all the directions, creeping like octopus tentacles. Moments later, centered at Mohan, with a radius of 50 meters, the whole space became utter darkness. From a distance, it looked like a giant black 165-foot sphere floating at the gate. The black sphere emitted a biting, icing air that was frosting the ground. The houses near it, and the gate afar were also covered with ice crystals. Boom! The black sphere started rolling towards Wan Cheng Chong. Wan Cheng Chong snorted and picked up his axe. His whole body emitted blinding golden lights and his pupils appeared to be on fire. Break! Suddenly, he jumped up and swung his axe down to cleave the sphere. The axe sank into the sphere's surface and the sphere began to shake uncontrollably. With a clamorous boom, the sphere was split in half by the axe. Bam! Wan Cheng Chong landed on the ground behind Mohan, leaving 2 deep footprints on the slate. The golden light that had surrounded him began to gradually disappear. The street had been torn apart, leaving a 330-foot wide crack. The slates had been shattered into stone chips and the buildings lining the street had collapsed into ruins. The power from this single axe movement had been devastating. Slap! Mohan's body had been split in 2 and the pieces fell in opposite directions. All that remained was a red puddle of blood. cooling on the ground. A myth of martial arts of the Heaven Realm had just fallen at the Tanyuan Gate. Liu Quanchen and Zhang Yuochen stood at the top of the Duke's Mansion observation tower to watch the battle taking place at the gate from afar. No wonder Wan Shengchong is the number one from the army of Yanwu Commandery. He was able to slay the head of the black market, Mo Han, with just one swing of his axe. It's marvelous, Liu Quanchen said in admiration while gently stroking his beard. That one swing contained all of Wan Shengchong's power, and if he hadn't been able to break Mo Han's sphere, he would have lost. Zhang Yuochen replied. Liu Quanchen nodded. I'm just curious. Since the head of the black market showed up, why didn't the chief of the moon worship demonic sect? There was a white chariot parked outside the Tanyuan Gate. It was gorgeous, elegant, and it looked like a perfect piece of art. There were a lot of men in black gathered not far from the chariot. Qin Ya stepped out of the chariot onto the wet meadow. With her slender arms, shapely legs, thin waist, soft breasts, and sensuous hips, people found her fascinating and charming. When Qin Ya appeared, the men in black, with golden masks, all lowered their heads, not daring to look at her directly. Just as you had expected, they activated the defender array of the Tanyuan Gate. Under its dome of power, the masters from the black market had no chance of survival, Mo Hanlin said. Qin Ya smiled gracefully, then she said, in her alluring voice, Chen Yukan wouldn't have had the courage. Wan Shengchong must have arrived at the Tanyuan Gate. This would be his way of doing things, and Mo Han is certainly dead. The head of a branch gang knelt down before Qin Ya before asking, Chief, what should we do now? We shall seize the black market's properties in Yanwu Commandery, as many as possible before its new head arrives. Within 10 days, the Moon Worship sect will control 70% of the Martial Market Bank and the black market's properties. This will give them complete control of the city's economic lifelines. Qin Ya returned to her elegant chariot after giving her order. The white chariot was pulled by 18 lightning rabbits, and it traveled on the tips of the grass like the Moon Fairy's magic chariot, as it journeyed to Yanwu City. Last night had been a night of slaughter for the people of the Tanyuan Gate. Countless masters from the black market and the moon worship demonic sect were slain, and their dead bodies had been piled into a macabre mountain outside the gate. Although the moon worship demonic sect evacuated a lot of its disciples in advance, there were still many who didn't make it, and their bodies would permanently remain at the Tanyuan Gate. The next morning, Wan Shengchong quickly escorted Zhang Yuochen and Zhang Shaxu to Yanwu City. Last night, Liu Quanchen snuck out of the Duke's mansion, leaving behind only a note to inform Zhang Yuochen that he had left for Devil Marshal City to admit his error and receive punishment. Warriors of the Heaven Realm could leave without a trace even when they were badly injured. Zhang Shaxu sat on the back of the saber-toothed thunder tiger as he said, Ninth brother, now that their leader is dead, will we be able to root out the rest of the black market? Zhang Yuochen grinned. The black market's history in this realm goes back even further than Yanwu Commandery. Its roots of power run deeper than our royal family. In Yanwu Commandery, only one leader has died, and they will surely send another. It won't be so easy to root it out. Zhang Shaxu said, for many years the Martial Market Bank also operated in Yanwu Commandery, and it was still eliminated by the black market and the moon worship demonic sect. Zhang Yuochen thought for a while, eyeing the front, and replied, it's true that the obvious properties of Martial Market Bank were seized, yet it has hidden properties. Its power in the Yanwu Commandery hasn't disappeared. All we can say for sure is that the Martial Market Bank only has a little influence left in Yanwu Commandery now. It is going to take 100 years of development for it to regain its original power. Wan Shengchong led an elite troop of 1,000 people to escort Zhang Yuochen and Zhang Shaxu to the center. Wan Shengchong didn't say a word the whole trip, and no one could tell what he was thinking. 4 hours later, Zhang Yuochen and Zhang Shaxu entered Yanwu City and hurried directly to the palace. They would first meet with the Yanwu Commandery prince. The three of them entered the throne hall. Being a warrior of the Heaven Realm, he still saluted Yanwu Commandery prince before saying, Your Majesty, I have escorted the 4th prince and the 9th prince to Yanwu City safely. Wan Shengchong highly respected Yanwu Commandery Prince. Yanwu Commandery Prince was sitting solemnly above them as he said, Shengchong, you're too polite. You don't need to salute me from now on. Wan Shengchong stood upright and said, Your Majesty, I killed Mohan, the head of the black market. However, the chief of the moon worship demonic sect escaped. Should I go and hunt her down? Yunwu Commandery Prince shook his head. The power of the black market and Marshall Market Bank have disintegrated, while the moon worship demonic sect has full control of the economic lifelines in Yunwu Commandery. Last night the balance was broken down. If we start the battle against the moon worship demonic sect now, our foundation will be badly damaged. Even if we win, the official force of the Yunwu Commandery was almost tied down by the Square Commandery's army. How would they have the energy to handle the moon worship demonic sect, which had only grown in influence? Yunwu Commandery Prince then looked at Zhang Yuochen, revealing a little smile. My son, I was told that you became the #1 freshman from the Western Campus. What realm are you at with your cultivation now? I'm at the medium state of the Black Realm, Zhang Yuochen said honestly. Zhang Shaxu was standing next to him and he immediately responded, Father, maybe you haven't heard, but ninth brother isn't only the #1 freshman from Western Campus, he is #1 out of all 4 campuses.